Okay. We're going to talk about the Lewis and Clark and the Ohio River. We're going to talk about Kentucky tourism. We're going to talk about sustainable tourism. And it's really to celebrate the Ohio River and the extension of it. Just to give a short overview of our program today. Did it share? And so here we have our agenda for the day. We're going to start off, once again, I'm David Wicks with the Ohio River Recreation Trail. And we're going to have Dan Wiley, Dan works with the National Park Service and is Chief Integrated Resource Stewardship Specialist for the entire trail. He manages the integrated resources for the stewardship team. Then we have Derek Schimmel, who works with Solimar International, who's under contract right now with the Lewis and Clark Trail to help develop the tourism initiatives. Then we have Seth Wheat, who works for the Kentucky Tourism and is responsible for tourism development as well as river towns, as well as trail towns. But as I mentioned earlier, we are part of the Ohio River Recreation Trail, and we encourage people to check out our website. It's really from Portsmouth, Ohio, down to Vanceburg, to Augusta, New Richmond, Cincinnati, all the way down here, Rising Sun, down here to Louisville, Kentucky, and then on to West Point. That's our focus right now. The web page has some fascinating pieces on here. One thing you want to check out if you're interested is the Rivertown Review, which we're working with the National Park Service on bringing a second set of eyes to each river town to help think about the future of tourism and outdoor recreation and history on the properties. One of our exciting pieces that we have is called the Ohio River Digital Guide, and it is a live document. Actually, it has all of the commercial vehicles. So if you're on fishing or boating on the Ohio River, you can see exactly where the barges are, where they're coming from. It's really all about safety, but it's also a planning document to help you see what river towns are there, what restaurants and what access points, and on and on and on. But that's enough about the Ohio River Recreational Trail. We want to get down to our purpose of the program, and it's just so exciting to me to have Dan Wiley talk today, because last year Congress extended the length of the Lewis and Clark Trail to include the entire Ohio River. So our Ohio River Recreation Trail is completely embedded in this celebration of the exploration of the United States. And so Dan, we're excited to have you here and look forward to your comments. And with that, you're on, Dan.
Well, thank you, David. Yeah, it is exciting to be here. We are excited about what's going on with the Ohio River Recreation Trail, and we love the fact that this partnership has been initiated, and we appreciate time on the agenda here today. So the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail is administered by the National Park Service, and we at the Park Service, these happy people you see here, who this isn't the last time we were all together at once, but since the COVID, but we certainly enjoy working with one another and servicing the trail's entire length of the trail. We don't own any land at Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. So by definition, we're a partnership park, and our partnerships are critical to us administering the trail. We have a great deal of responsibility, however, and that is one of the largest aspects of it is to protect the historical, natural, cultural, and recreation resources of the trail. We operate by influence to protect these resources and to enhance visitor experience. We are definitely a partnership trail. Nothing gets done on the trail except through partnerships. Now, a little about the trail. The trail is 70% water trail, and that includes the extension of the Ohio. So we're on many major rivers of this country. The Ohio in its entirety, the little bit of the Mississippi from the mouth of the Ohio up to the Missouri, the entire Missouri River. Then, of course, we're overland, over the mountains to the Clearwater River, running down the Snake and into the Columbia all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So while it's largely water-based and riverine, we recognize that the trail is in fact a corridor. It has width to it, and that width is important because of all of the entities within the riparian areas and associated lands on the trail. Our mission is to preserve the remnants of the historic route of 1803 through 1806. And we are focusing today on allowing for a better visitor understanding and appreciation of the significance of the trail. The trail purpose is that we are to commemorate the trail of 1803 to 1806 and the expedition. So we identify and protect and interpret and create enhanced public use and enjoyment and preservation of the historic, cultural, and natural resources, as well as the recreational resources. And an important part for us is the expedition in its place within tribal history. It's very important to us to be inclusive of the tribes. So the trail was in fact extended, as David mentions. Here's a shot of a media event that was hosted in Clarksville, Ohio, Indiana, and in that, I must call out that there were lots of parties that were involved in bringing the trail extension to fruition. And that includes Senator Young of Indiana, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, and multiple representations from the congressional delegation. It also includes Mr. Jim Mallory of the Lewis and Clark Trust, who I understand is in our audience today, a great supporter of the trail extension, and the Lewis and Clark Trail Heritage Foundation, in particular, the Ohio River chapter. And many, many more people were involved in bringing this to reality. The trail, basically, it's everywhere Lewis and Clark went. And so we know, as I've said, that it's a corridor. We know they were on the landscape besides being on the river. They documented natural, cultural, and human resources that they encountered. They mapped and named rivers and described 5 major ecoregions that the trail goes through. They literally identified hundreds of plant and animal species that were previously unknown to science. And yet all of this was well known by the native people. And the expedition made contact with over 50 native tribes, which are now tribal nations. Sustainable tourism, or geotourism. This is what we're about here in this project and program that we're talking about today. And it is important for you all to know that the National Park Service, via the Lewis and Clark National and Historic Trail headquarters in Omaha, are in it for the long term for this sustainable tourism. While we are now dealing with the COVID virus, we know that tourism needs to be available long into the future. And it's all about making tourism sustainable. And so we are here, we stand ready to complete this project to get everything in place for when tourism really does develop and expand, and wait till we have the problem of too many tourists. Wouldn't that be wonderful for many of the communities along this trail to be able to have to determine, oh my gosh, we have more people coming than we can handle at capacity. That'll happen at some point in time, and this is all about positioning yourself to be ready for tourism when it comes. Geotourism is tourism that sustains, and so we actually use sustainable tourism and geotourism interchangeably. And it sustains and enhances the environment, the geographic character, the entire range of culture, aesthetics, heritage, and the well-being of its residents. So this is about sustainable communities as much as sustainable tourism, and being able to show folks what you've got. Geotourism encompasses a range of travel, and that includes culture, heritage, history, food, nature, and adventure, the outdoors, the water, the music, and the arts. We want folks to have access to visitors of the trail, even if they don't know they're on the trail. Maybe they'll learn something about the trail, but we want them to have access to all of these wonderful aspects of tourism, and yet not leave a heavy footprints in the process. We have undertaken this program as David had mentioned in the preamble, about our relationship with Solimar International. We also have a contractual relationship with IANTA, the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association. We know it's more of a challenge to get the native voice, to get to native people and allow them to understand the possibilities by becoming a partner with the National Park Service. And of course, I've always mentioned the Lewis and Clark Trust and the Lewis and Clark Trail Heritage Foundation, important partners in all of our efforts. So sustainable tourism and sustainable communities, they're interrelated, very strongly interrelated. So through this program and through this website, you get to define what your community is. It's not just local jurisdictions. It's not confined by local jurisdictions. It's the people and the places that you relate to. And while traditional local cities, towns, and tribal nations partners are welcome, community is not limited in that way. It could be a water trail, such as the Ohio River Recreation Trail. It could be a local business or a group of local businesses. It can be bed and breakfasts, and brew pubs and distilleries, outfitters, authentic cultural experiences, educational groups, historical groups. And bottom line, you're not limited to one community. You can be a part of many communities that you have an interest in. So community is being defined by you and those folks that are like thinking. It's about what you have, uh, what you're doing to conserve natural and cultural resources and experiences, what you want to invite people to see and experience in your area. So we urge you to restart and reimagine tourism during this time for your communities. The Ohio River Recreation Trail is doing an incredible job of taking the geotourism program and leveraging their partnership with the National Park Service to enhance the tourism value of their communities. We look forward to wonderful ideas and partnerships developing even further, and the ideas of increased citizen science, biodiversity enhancement, education, and interpretation that we see on the near horizon here with the Ohio River Recreation Trail. With that, here's my contact information. I want to introduce Derek Schummel, who's the project manager. He's been mentioned previously with Solimar International. They are doing a wonderful job in helping us to bring to the American public and the international public the opportunities for tourism along the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. Thank you.
Unmuted. Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate the introduction and the kind words. So I'm going to just take some time and kind of back up and go a little bit more in depth on the ideas of what Dan had just shared, because oftentimes people hear sustainability and tourism and they kind of have question marks in their eyes. We often see. So to begin, what is sustainability in tourism? For us, it's threefold. It's three-pillar. So the first is economic conservation. We want to go into your communities and the Riverside communities and make sure that that tourism multiplier inside is increasing. We want the money to stay inside of the main streets, inside of the residents' pockets, and steer away from those bigger box chains. The more money that goes into those local communities and the local businesses, the more it's going to enhance the economic value of the entire region. So first and foremost, it starts with the economy. The second piece of it is environmental protection. So this is a really, really big piece of the puzzle in regards to the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail because of the location along the rivers. So we want to use tourism as a way to preserve and protect the environment, especially as far as the Ohio River Recreation Trail is concerned. It's a great partnership for us in that we're looking for ways to explore that conservation river, to keep it open and accessible for people and generations to come. It's a really interesting question in terms of tourism because so many of these places, whether it's a river, a jungle, a beach, these are the types of places that people want to go. And there's a certain amount of capacity that these places can take until they start to deteriorate. So it's finding that fine line between the two so that we're enhancing the economic value of the area, all while preserving the environment and having the tourists, the visitors, understand the importance of conservation through education, which is a really, really difficult piece, but it is something that we all work on together. And, it's up to us as the tourism leaders to take the role there in forcing that education upon people and having them understand that where they are is a special place and that they must respect it when they're visiting. And then third, for me, this is near and dear to my heart, is cultural preservation. So as the world becomes flatter, as more flights are available, more cruise ships are available, travel has become easier and easier. And we're starting to see gentrification of coastlines, of cities all across the world. Languages are being lost, history is being lost, culture is being lost. Through geotourism and sustainability, we want to use the platform to preserve culture and go into your towns and steer away again from those big box chains and use that culture, the history that you have as a means of storytelling and bringing a special experience, an authentic experience to your visitors. So that cultural side, this could be community preservation is a synonymous name as well. So celebrating community tourism, working from the bottom up as opposed to the top down, and really getting to the core, because you, the residents, are the people that know the place better than anyone. And we want to be able to give you the platform to tell your story. So what are some of the strategies in sustainability? So it starts with strategic planning. This is a big piece of what was discussed on the last webinar, as far as the River Talk seminars and educational forums are going to be. So it's going in, understanding what that asset inventory is, what are the pros and cons, the SWOT analysis, the PESTEL analysis of a particular place, and going in and really just digging in deep to find out what the issues are at hand in order to develop a better tourism product. Workforce development, this is another big one as well. We want to empower people inside of the community to find jobs, especially, you know, as in a world gone pandemic. Workforce development is one of the most important elements that we're keying in on right now, is putting the power in the hands of the local people to find work inside of tourism, inside of their community. So again, that helps to sustain the economic value of the place. And then of course, destination management and marketing. So a lot of people are familiar with the term DMO. Destination is the D, organization is the O. The M in DMO is often confused between management and marketing. There is no right answer, but at the end of the day, marketing fits into that management piece. So as the DMOs, you need to be the stewards of your destination, both for the tourists and for the residents as well. You need to be those placemakers, listen to what your constituents are saying, what their wants and needs are, and make sure those align with the visitors that are coming in as well. Because once you lose track of the people that are on the ground, your people, it starts to stem up to the tourists, and it de-hances the experience across the board. So from a sustainability perspective, it's really, again, understanding that the DMOs are the bridgers of the gap between the residents and the visitors themselves. So going back to what Dan said here, this is digging in now to our Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail experience, our geotourism program. As Dan mentioned, there's two ways to get involved. First is the Sustainable Community Partnership. And this would be the actual towns themselves. We've worked with chambers of commerce, CVBs, Convention Visitor Bureau Centers, again, destination marketing organizations. ORRT is a community partner. We have Confluence Project out west along the Columbia River. We have different county leaders. And then we've had just champions of the project, individuals inside of communities that want to take the role of a leader inside of their community. So this community partnership program, as Dan said, is open up to really anybody to act as the steward and the advocate for their particular area. Some of the benefits that come along with that community partnership, first and foremost, it's that digital marketing piece. It's promotion on the Lewis and Clark travel website and amongst our communication channels. So that'll be the newsletters, social media, et cetera, et cetera. We have a digital badge that the communities will get, as well as in-person signage. And then we have press release, resolution, loads of different marketing material that you can use to help promote the program inside of your community. And then again, with increased community engagement, this is a really fun piece of the puzzle for us. When we were out, so we had road trips planned all throughout the US along the trail throughout this summer. We did one out in Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana in February. And then with COVID, we had to pull the plug on the rest. But it was really intriguing to see these inside of these workshops, the different people inside of the community that are coming together. So we would get teachers, librarians, we had some doctors in some points, educators, and all these different elements of the community that come together towards a similar goal and a similar cause. And in a world divided, it's really great to have a project where everybody can support it, get behind it, and bring people together in the same room. And the idea sharing that goes on amongst that is really, really fantastic. So it's twofold. It's not only inside of each individual community, but it's all along the trail as well. So we have this vision of, the Paducah, Kentucky, or West Point, Kentucky, starting conversations with Astoria, Oregon, or Helena, Montana, Omaha, Nebraska, just bringing a sense of community amongst all of these different regions of the United States and having them understand that they're part of something that's bigger than them. This is what the community partnership page looks like, and we'll be able to circle up and send you all this information on the back end. But to get involved, it's quite simple. You'll go visit our website, lewisandclark.travel, click on the Get Involved page, and then it's a short application here you'll see on the right side, which gets started. you'll name your community, proximity to the trail, evidence of community support, and some other small contact information that maybe takes 5 or 10 minutes to sign up. Once we receive that application, we'll be able to send you all of those different marketing materials and the press kit that will help you to promote the program inside of your community. As an example, this is 2 communities along the Ohio River that have signed up and that have been fantastic, awesome partners. So we have the town of Vevay, and then we have Ohio County and Rising Sun. So Kendall Miller there, she's been absolutely fantastic. And this is just an example of the pages that people will see. So as community partners, they have the ability to create their own page and kind of act as that center point for the rest of the community. We have a team of writers on staff here that can help to create the content. Of course, we want the content to be in your own words through that element of storytelling. But our team is happy to support you, give you tips, ideas of how to create that great content that'll bring visitors in. So I give you these 2 examples, Vevay and Rising Sun. We have some other partners as well. We just signed up West Point. I had a meeting with Brandenburg yesterday. We have Santa Claus. Indiana, I think, is towards the end of the Ohio River. So there's quite a few that we have signed up. We have a couple in West Virginia as well. Pittsburgh is a partner. And then we also work with universities inside of these communities as well to get students and professors involved. So that's really where that idea of geo and geotourism comes from, is that it's geography based. It's everybody that's located along the trail, which brings us to the sites, attractions, and businesses. Now, Dan had mentioned this earlier, but I want to touch on it again. Who is available, or who can promote their business and nominate themselves? The short answer is really anybody. Before I even look at this further, I want to say that we love relevance to the Lewis and Clark Trail and the Core Discovery. In Louisville, Kentucky, we have the York statue, and we have the Belle of Louisville has a relevance to the Lewis and Clark and Core Discovery. There's loads of different places that have that history and the culture that are affiliated with the Core Discovery. But again, with geo being that prefix in geotourism, it doesn't have to have a relevance. So as Dan said, there could be breweries, distilleries, beds and breakfasts, hotels, events, historical sites, old homes. And then it's more than just actual businesses. It could be scenic routes. It could be scenic drives, great bike rides you can take, places to watch the sunset along the river. It could be individual storytellers, outdoor guides, historians. Anybody that's going to make your place unique. If I was coming to visit one of your communities for the first time and you wanted to show me your destination, your city, your way, where would you take me? Who would you introduce me to? Whoever that answer is would be more than welcome to nominate themselves to the site. We have, as I said, we've had loads of different types of businesses on. We have mile markers. We have different parks. We have museums, so many different types. We have individuals themselves that are just, self-proclaimed historians that can tell the story in their community. So, going back to that partnership element, all of these different places are going to make partnerships and help to enhance the sustainability of tourism inside of your communities and all along the Lewis and Clark Trail. As far as the benefits of these, again, it's similar to those community benefits. So they'll be featured as points of interest on our digital map guide, which I'm going to show you here momentarily. And then that big piece there is the ability to tell your own story. We want you, the business owners, the communities, to tell your own story in your own words. You, as the residents, know the best places to visit and the best places to point visitors once they're inside of your friendly confines. And then it's that connection to the other Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail and Ohio River Recreation Trail communities. So one thing I should mention, our partnership with ORT, we do a lot of sharing. So communities that sign up with us will pass along to ORT and vice versa. So we work really closely with them. We do our best to make sure that you're only having to create one piece of content that can exist in 2 different places, and we'll go in and have our team explore the content to ensure that there's no sort of duplicate content or anything like this. So that's why we're really happy about this partnership, is that we're giving you the ability to get on 2 platforms all at once. And then with the Ohio River Recreation Trail, so many of our benefits run parallel to one another. So it's a great way to engage both sides of it, from more internally and locally for the Ohio River Recreation Trail, and then more holistically all along the Lewis and Clark Trail with our geotourism program. So to nominate a place, this is what it looks like. And again, all of this information we'll be able to circle up with on email, so it becomes easier for you to navigate. But you'll go to our homepage, lewisandclark.travel, and click nominate a place. From there, you'll register a new account, go through the motions of verifying when they send you an email. And again, all of this information can be and will be shared with the Ohio River Recreation Trail so that they can incorporate it onto their site as well. Where has geotourism taken place in the past? So there's been a lot of different projects. You could see here in the Sierra Nevadas, the Greater Yellowstone, the Tennessee River Valley, which was mentioned on our call a couple of weeks ago, Mississippi River, Four Corners. Many of these were promoted alongside National Geographic. So National Geographic were actually coined the term geotourism. When Fox bought them a couple of years ago, they have since pulled the plug on geotourism, and a lot of these projects, while they're still websites and platforms are still live, they're kind of getting lost in the mix. So what we're doing with our program to ensure that there's engagement and to ensure that this exists in perpetuity, as Dan mentioned, we're going to be moving forward with different content strategies based around educational pillars. So everything from the history of the trail to sustainability and tourism, to eating locally and the benefits of farm-to-table restaurants, contactless hospitality, rivers and how they've changed over the years. All different topics every month we're going to explore via expert interviews, through educational seminars that will be featured on lewisandclark.travel on demand. So anybody can go in and watch the videos at their leisure. If they want to log in and watch the seminars live when we're recording them, we'd welcome that as well. So we're really, really excited. We've mimicked this geotourism idea, which you see here on the screen, but then we're taking it that next step further to really engage our audience and make sure that they feel part of something bigger than them. So very quickly in these last few minutes, I just want to show you precisely what our website looks like. And I'm going to share my screen once again, if I can figure out how.
Derek, maybe you could put the URL in the chat box and let people explore it on their own. Oh, there we go.
Here we are. Sorry about that delay. So this is our website. This is our platform. I'm going to jump straight down to the digital map guide. So this is where those nominations and listing are going to live and survive. If we jump over here, you can see we've had loads of engagement with the Eastern expansion since they became part of the trail last year. So we're really, really excited about that. You can see the many different sites. I know I had mentioned Vive and Rising Sun earlier. So we can zoom into the map here and see here in Vive the different points on the map. Here's the courthouse. It's a great site. There, Pleasant Rose Inn, which is a bed and breakfast that folks can stay in. We have the Historical Museum. So loads of different ideas and places that people can go on, zoom in and out. And then we have the plan your trip section here, where people will be able to get different ideas from the local people of, the best campsites to visit or the best outdoor recreation outfitters to rent kayaks from, all sorts of different ideas. And we'll start to feature different materials in conjunction with the Ohio River Recreation Trail, specifically for this Eastern expansion, so that when visitors are moving along, they'll be able to see different places, top restaurants to eat at, top museums to see, again, all through the eyes of the local people. So that is our program. We're really, really excited to be part of it. We're really excited to partnership with the Ohio River Recreation Trail. As you all know, David and Brewster and Jerry and the rest of the team, they've been just absolutely fantastic partners. They're inspiring. They inspire us with the amount of time and effort that they put into this program. And it's just a wonderful partnership that we're really, really thrilled to be part of. So I really appreciate the time, and I'll pass it back over to you, David.
All right. Well, why, thank you very much. And it's just so exciting, not only to see the historical connections to the ecology, the historical connections to tourism. It's just, it's a very good thing. Another shout out for Derek, he didn't mention it, but he's worked in 40 countries around the world. And so it's just, another interesting piece of really highlighting the Ohio River with an international audience. And you know, it's just wonderful that the National Park Service has engaged with Solimar to really have a global picture of what our backyard really can be. It's just so exciting, and that's sort of a perfect lead into our next speaker, Seth. Who, Seth, by the way, you're there. You go. You're not muted anymore. But Seth is Director of Tourism Development for the Kentucky Department of Tourism, and is very engaged in, and has been engaged for a long time with this trail towns and how we can help smaller communities really take the full benefit of tourism. And, you know, that's what Kentucky Department of Tourism is all about. You know, they promote historical tourism, but also ecological tourism. And it's just good to have you here, Seth. And I look forward to your 15 minutes.
All right, we'll get rolling. And like everybody else, I appreciate the time and being asked to be a part of this. We'll talk about the Trail Town program and how we got to where we are. And you're going to hear a lot of consistent themes with what I'm saying to what you all just heard. I mean, it's a lot of the same song, second verse, I think. But we started this program back late 2012, early 2013. Anybody that caught the video that David was playing right before we kicked off, you noticed my title at the bottom was Kentucky Adventure Tourism Office. That was kind of a made-up title we had for ourselves. And we worked on a lot of different projects and had a lot of failures, frankly, and that's kind of what led us to create this Trail Town program. We were charged to try to build a trail all the way across the state of Kentucky going east to west, and we were really bad at that. But through that process and working with different communities and working with different entities all across Kentucky, you know, we sort of had this realization of the value that there is in, well, you can call it adventure tourism, outdoor recreation, geotourism, whatever buzzword you want to use, this idea of outdoor, active, engaged people in their communities. There's so much value to that. And that's the reason we created the Kentucky Trail Town program. We certainly weren't the first people to do it. It was not a new concept. We were, however, the first people to do it on a statewide level. And I'm pretty happy about that. And it's had more than its share of challenges, like anything does, but we're happy with where it is. We're happy with the communities that we've been working with, and we'll tell you a little bit more about it. The first big reason is because of the economic impact, like I just mentioned. Being in the tourism cabinet, our job is to positively impact the economy of Kentucky and the communities inside of Kentucky through tourism development. One thing our industry needs to be better at doing, and we're coming more around to it, is that tourism development is economic development. There is no differentiation. And you should do it in a way that is thoughtful, that is mindful to a lot of the things that Derek just talked about, so that you don't lose your own unique cultural identity. You don't lose the things that make you authentic. But by increasing the amount of tourists that come into your community, you will see a positive impact on your local economies. This information you're looking at now is from the Outdoor Industry Association, and they tell us that we spend over $800 billion in outdoor recreation every year in this country. The vast majority of that money right there is actually spent on trips and travel related to participation in outdoor recreation. And I kind of view that as the actual tourism impact of that large $887 billion number. In Kentucky, it's $12.8 billion. That's up from $8.4 in 2012 when we started this program. I'm not going to even pretend to sit here and take all the credit for that, but I think we've had a large part in increasing our impact here in Kentucky because the main focus of this Trail Town program is all about connections. And if you aren't able to get people from your outdoor resource into your communities, then you're not going to see the economic impact. I tell people they're not going to float up and down the river or hike down the trails and throw money out of their pockets. You have to encourage them and invite them into your communities where they can make that economic impact. And that's the basis for this. Another benefit to this program, and not just this program, but this type of work, is that it crosses a lot of different sectors. And the physical health of communities in Kentucky is, you know, unfortunately not the best in the nation. But it's changing everywhere. These maps are old, but it's a really nice illustration. In 1990, there wasn't a state in the country that had an obesity rate over 20%. By 2010, that statistic had completely reversed itself, and we went to having no states that had obesity rates less than 20%. So in that 20-year period, a lot changed in our lives. One of the things we did is we became more sedentary and we spend more time in front of our screens. So there are numerous benefits outside of the economics to this type of work. By encouraging people to engage in activities that are fun, that are also active, we think they'll do them more, they'll participate in them more, they'll bring their friends and family. And then there are more studies too, and I'm certainly no expert on this, but shows the social and mental benefits to unstructured time in the outdoors. Just engaging with nature, being outside, not necessarily participating in organized team sports, which also have a health benefit, but simply being outside, engaging in your favorite activity has a multitude of benefits. I mentioned the connections. You have to bring these folks in from the rivers, from the trails, from the bike routes, from whatever they're engaging on, into your communities. You want to be inviting to them when they get there. The process is broken down into 3 main components. You focus on the trail activities you're promoting. If you don't have good quality trails, if your canoe and kayak launches are inaccessible or dirty or flooded out the entire year, they won't get utilized. You have to make sure the reason people are visiting, which it could be a multitude of reasons, but the outdoor assets are in the best shape that you can make them. And then the second main component is you focus on the town itself. A lot of our communities in Kentucky, they close the doors to their restaurants or to their retailers at 5 o'clock, and they're not open on the weekends. You want to make sure you have things available to people when they're going to be traveling. You want to make sure all your businesses in your downtown district don't have no public restroom signs. They have no Wi-Fi signs. You want to do the subtle things that a visitor notices that maybe you may not, being a local or being a person who lives there. You want to take a step back, look at your community, make sure you're a good place to visit also in this program. The third thing we do in the Trail Town program is we encourage or require communities to host what we call a trial run event. It's a special event where we, the department, and our partners will invite trail users from really anywhere. We have a pretty extensive list of people, and encourage them to go spend time in this prospective trail town. And then while they're there, they acquire a survey, and it gives instant feedback to these communities and to our partners on how they're doing. Were you able to find what you needed? Could you find a restaurant? Could you find places to spend the night? Or the local people that you interacted with, were they, welcoming and inviting? Did they know all the things there are to do in the area? One of the things we struggle with in a lot of places are that a lot of our community members feel that there's nothing good to do in their town. And that could be farther from the truth, but it's difficult to make up for an experience someone has when they come into the gas station or they're at the local restaurant or they're wherever and they interact with somebody. They say, what is there good to do around here? And somebody comes back, well, there's nothing fun around here. There's nothing worth seeing around here. And we've got unique stuff all over Kentucky. So it's just changing mindsets, letting people know what they have to offer and let them know, how to communicate that with people that are visiting. I mentioned some of the earlier struggles we had, but some of the people we took a close look at when we were putting this program together were places like Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I don't want to build a bunch of Gatlinburgs all over Kentucky. That couldn't be further from the truth. But Gatlinburg came to be from its proximity to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the most visited national park in the country. And I'm not quite old enough to have remembered it during its earlier days, but I know people that do, and they say it was a vastly different place than what it is now. The Great Allegheny Passage, they really conceptualized the Trail Town program up and down that trail system, and they were a phenomenal partner with us, as were people from both Damascus and Abington, Virginia. And they've earned the reputation as Trail Town USA. They're on the Virginia Creeper Trail, which is a very popular Rails to Trails project, and also the Appalachian Trail cuts right through the heart of their town. And it's a town of just around 1,000 people that has, the last time I heard, was 6 or 7 bike shops, several, almost 20 bed and breakfasts, 9 different locally owned retailers, and they attribute so much of their local economy to those trail systems that are there, and they're such an inviting place. And then plenty of trial and error. We still go through that. Anytime you do a program like this and roll it out across the state, you'll see a number of different challenges come up. And they're all unique and they're all kind of similar too. And it's been really funny, but, being in this space for the last 6 or 7 years, we've seen a lot of different administrations change, not just at the state level, but more importantly at the local level, mayors and county judge executives and our local, magistrates and city councilmen. And it's important when towns undertake this process here that they get as many people involved as they can. We want this to be something that outlives my work at the Department of Tourism or anything else. It's all about the locals engaging themselves and making sure that you have good community buy-in, good community support. You need to, encourage partnership with people, your local health departments, your chambers of commerce, your local tourism offices, obviously, but people that all have these different missions that are in your community that may never get together at the same table and talk about what they're trying to do to make their town a better place to live. And at the end of the day, that's the mission that all of them share. It's a common theme, and that they all want their towns to be as good a place to live as they can possibly be. And you should never try to encourage tourism at the, if it will harm the local community, because things can get out of control. So being mindful and having a plan from the start, as you said about trying to attract new people to your area to come and visit and go and tell their friends about it, it really lessens some of those growing pains, we think. And we do a number of different marketing services for our trail towns. That's one of the main reasons people would want to undertake this program. I'll show you a picture from our website soon. We have funding for our limited supplemental guidance signs here in Kentucky, the big brown signs you all see as you drive up and down the interstates and point travelers to different destinations. We don't offer any money in this program. We don't charge anybody to participate in it, of course, but what we do try to provide people is a list of resources. Here are different ways you can go about funding different projects, and that's led to some really good deals for us. The primary one being that one of the major ways we fund trail projects here in Kentucky and a lot of other states is, of course, the Recreational Trails Program. And in Kentucky, if you are a certified or an applicant trail town, you actually receive bonus points on your RTP applications, and that's been a big help for a lot of these towns. The intangible benefits, are, I feel, just as important, and it's trying to revive communities that may have, fallen by the wayside. It's trying to encourage people, or at least provide the opportunity. So many of the small towns in Eastern Kentucky or Western Kentucky, they see their kids grow up and go off to college, and we're not getting those kids to move back home. Well, with the way that, that the internet has allowed people to work from home, and we've learned that more this year than ever before, if you have a good, vibrant, active community, you don't have to necessarily be a big city to be an attractive place to live and raise a family. So, it's a lot of things that go into it, but at the end of the day, it's all about quality of life. I mean, that's the end all for us, is that we want these places to be good places to live and good places to visit. Another, marketing piece that we've done. We do at least one paid campaign every year for all of our trail towns at no cost to them. We generally work with a partner like Blue Ridge Outdoors and do a spread there along with some digital assets. They get featured on our Department of Tourism website, which I will show you on now. One second, sorry about that. Here's the Trail Town landing page, KentuckyTourism.com. It's an easy URL to remember. We have all of our trail towns listed on here. We also have a collection of content that we have paid for or generated. We have user-generated social media content on our website. And it's just a way for people to, learn about these trail towns and learn about what all there is to do there. One recent thing that we have done is create the first Kentucky Trail Town Guidebook. You can download the PDF on the website here. You can pick it up in person at all of our trail towns and soon to be in all of our state welcome centers, and just a handy thing that we've produced for these towns, at no cost to them to help them get the word out. That's really the down and dirty of the Trail Town program. I'm happy to talk to you all more about that later, or somebody can get in touch with me afterwards. And I'm here, sort of trying to make a recruiting push for any towns up and down the Ohio River that may be interested in this, but at the same time, we're sitting on 23, soon to be 24, currently certified trail towns. And while there is no magic number that we have to stop at, there's no hard deadline, or there's no hard number of how many we need to have, this is very much a quality over a quantity program for me. I would rather have, say, 30 really good trail towns than 50 that just kind of halfway do it. And so we want to instill that each town is living up to its end of the bargain when they undergo this process, because if someone comes to a trail town and has a bad experience, it'll negatively impact the reputation of all the other ones. So we want to make sure the ones we have, still continue to work to improve themselves, to make the trails, make sure they're maintained, make sure they're in the best shape they can be, and things like that. So this has been an interesting year, not just for our trail towns, of course, but for all tourism development in Kentucky, like it has everywhere else. We're seeing an uptick, undoubtedly, in people that are wanting to engage in more outdoor recreation opportunities. But at the onset of the coronavirus back in the early spring, we really had to pump the brakes on a lot of stuff. We were seeing some things coming out from a lot of national groups like the Access Fund and some different, IMBA, people like that were really cautioning people that they need to recreate close to home. We didn't want to overload these local rural health systems that are, don't have the resources that some of our larger ones do. So we're trying to thread that needle now as things open up at varying levels, and people are, they have all this pent up demand to get out and see places. So we're encouraging people to still recreate responsibly. That's a national movement now that a lot of different recreational and conservational organizations are promoting. But we're trying to provide, as much information to these folks as we can. It's been an interesting time, to say the least, but I think we'll come out of it strong. The numbers that I'm getting ready to talk about now will certainly be negatively impacted for next year. But so again, this screen you all are seeing now is our general Kentucky tourism website. This is our consumer facing site. This is what people come to visit when they want to learn more about Kentucky. Hopefully they come here. We also have what we call the industry portal that anybody can access. At the very bottom of our website, you'll see an industry tab there. And that takes you to a site where you can find all sorts of information. Under the adventure tourism button here, you can find the actual Trail Town development documents that I have. If you're interested in going through this process or learning more about it, there's a ton of information there. One thing that may be interesting to some of you all, particularly our Kentucky communities that may be tuned in, if you've never seen this, you can find our annual economic impact of tourism reports. We have executive summaries, of course, and we also have a county by county breakdown. And you can see exactly how much tourism impacts your county every year. The table up here talks about how many people it employs. It talks about our state and local tax contributions, which is always an important number, and then the direct impact, the spending, and the overall impact. So, we've got Boone County. I need to move this so I can see it. It's over $1 billion a year in Boone County in 2018. The top number is 18, the bottom number is 17. But we've got it broken out by every county here, and that's available for anybody for free if you need those resources. Looking at my notes here, I don't know, I kind of breezed through this. I don't think I've missed any of the big ticket items, but it's, we're happy with the program. We're looking at ways now to take it kind of into the future. We're really at a turning point. Like I said, it's not as much now about trying to certify a bunch of new trail towns. It's about working with the ones that we have and making sure they're engaged. And if there are towns along the Ohio River, and I know Vanceburg is one that has reached out to me in the past and shown interest. Carrollton is another community on the Kentucky side here. One thing we're seeing that makes towns successful is working collaboratively with towns that have that shared resource. One great example are towns, certified trail towns, down here around Mammoth Cave National Park and the Green River. They have both institutionalized marketing alliances, a Cave Country Trails Initiative group that gets together and meets regularly and works on the various projects. And we're seeing them be really successful because of those partnerships that they've built, not only within their community at the onset. This is a very kind of hyper-local program at the onset. But as you grow and as you go on, you need to reach out to your neighbors and make sure that you're all working together. And that's one way to be successful. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, however many towns along the river that think they may be interested in this, I would encourage you all, reach out to me. I'll come meet with you. I'll do it virtually, however we need to do it. But then also reach out to the other towns and kind of work through this program together. It takes towns about a year to a year and a half to get it done now, but that really varies all over the map because the resources in all of our communities vary pretty widely.
All right. Thank you very much, Seth. Maybe you could unshare your screen.
Yep.
It's just exciting to see these projects go on, and it's really a combination of history, the natural environment, and how we can connect. We have someone else online right now who's with the Lewis and Clark Trust, and Jim Mallory. Are you there?
I'm here, David. Thank you. You hear me?
Tell us about the Lewis and Clark Trust for a minute.
I'll take just a quick minute to do that. Lewis and Clark Trust is a formal friends group of the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, and we're honored to have that position. To my knowledge, we're the only friends group of the 30 scenic and historic trail groups in the nation that support their park partner. As such, we really do promote tourism in a major way. We work with the park, with Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, to make certain that they get the benefits of things they cannot afford to do. That gets around to the money side of it, and I'll touch on that quickly and move on. We actually raise money to do things that the trail cannot legally do. They can't give you a pen or give you a gift. We can, that relates to Lewis and Clark. And so we spend a great deal of time actually raising money to make certain that we promote the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. We see it as a major, major, major benefit to the American people. I like to say it's the most efficient and effective service provided by a federal agency that's available today in the United States. I have been honored today just to listen in on people that are excited about tourism and trails in this country. Seth, you've done a great job of really laying out what we're doing in Kentucky concerning trails, the trail towns, and the economic benefits that it brings to the state of Kentucky. I will take that a step further. It's not just Kentucky. We're actually behind the game, behind in what we need to be doing. For the last 35 years, I've been traveling the trail from one side of this country to the other. And there are many states that have long ago recognized that the benefits of tourism goes far beyond anything else they can do for their state. I look forward to the day when our Lewis and Clark travel website has Eastern pictures on the site as much as I do those great Western scenes of prairies and bison and so forth. And if we keep working, we're going to have some pictures on that website that depicts the Eastern story of Lewis and Clark. I also want to pile on with Seth with one other point here. He mentioned two of the great trails and great examples in this country that I like to talk about, but I'm going to add a third one to it. The Allegheny Passage is part of the Lewis and Clark story as part of the Damascus story and a Virginia Creeper Trail in the east. But there's one in the west. If you're in the west, if you're in Missouri and you don't take advantage of the Katy Trail, shame on you. It's a perfect example of how they took a trail, took an old railroad, converted to a trail, and it made it a major success. As an old man in the 60s, going back and forth to college in Missouri, I would use the Katy Trail. And I remember when they pulled up the rails and said they're going to put a trail out there, and the local people said, oh, no, we don't want this. Today, if you went in and tried to end the Katy Trail and all the benefits and all the tourism, all the conservation is brought to the region, you would have a major war. About 3 years ago, I walked into a bike shop one Sunday morning and asked if there was if I could rent a couple of bikes, knowing that there were none out front and I didn't see any inside. And the man said, oh, do you have a reservation? And my comment was, no. He said, you'd have needed a reservation a month ago. That's the benefits of trails, and that's the benefit of Katy Trail.
Thanks,
David, I
Tim.
appreciate your time. Thanks a million.
We have a few comments from Brewster and maybe a question or two. Go ahead, Brewster.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just quickly, we have a really wonderful cross-section of folks. We have 40 communities and 14 states represented on the call. We have 7 people from the National Park Service all over the country who are doing similar work to our friends Andrea and Russ collaborating with us here. We have 15 communities from Indiana, number 1. Number 2 is Kentucky with 11 different communities, and Ohio comes in with 8, but they're up and down the river all through the area. And then we also have Charleston and Clark and Charlottesville, Chicago, Omaha, Columbia, Missouri, Catonsville, Maryland. So folks are tapping in from all over the place. We have 18 travel and tourism officials. We have 8 park districts and conservancies. We have ODNR, Indiana DNR, Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. We even have West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection. So a broad cross-section. We're grateful for all you participating. It's really exciting. We also have a number of new partners that just joined up with us in the last 2 months. I'll list them real quick. Rising Sun Main Street, the Falls of the Ohio Foundation, Boone County Conservation District, Great Parks of Hamilton County, Main Street Aurora, the City of Lawrenceburg, the Tri-State Trails Organization of Green Umbrella, Friends of Portsmouth, the Ohio River Basin Alliance, the Boone County Conservancy, Southern Indiana Tourism, Kenton County Parks and Rec, River Rats, Inc. We love those guys swimming across the river. The Belle of Louisville, the Ohio Environmental Council, Rivertown Marina just joined yesterday, and Meade County Tourism and Chamber of Commerce. So we're real excited to have a broad cross-section of folks. You can become a partner too by going to the website and just filling out the form. It doesn't cost you money. We'll post your logo with a link to your website. A couple of questions that have come in. I appreciate them. Actually, we have 2 from our friends Alan and Amy in Indiana with Indiana Department of Natural Resources, their trail division. And basically the question is to Seth about What are the general size and scope of the trial trail town events? How many participants do you have? What's the makeup? Do you pay them to participate? Seth, can you hear me?
I think Seth is not on anymore. Something happened.
Okay, something, we lost him. Sorry about that. We did have a question about, does Solimar work with individual towns? Can a town contract directly with Derek and his organization to have them do consulting work, as I understand the question?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's the answer? The answer is yes.
Yeah, 100%.
People could follow up with you. We'll make sure
Yeah.
people have that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then Mark Young with Parks Forever, Louisville, wonderful organization, wanted to know how many trail towns are there along the Ohio? And Seth, I think, told us before that there are no, I think you saw on the map, there are no official trail towns for Kentucky along the Ohio, none. So there's an opportunity to be the first one, or to have, wouldn't it be great if we had 7 or 8 high quality Kentucky trail towns from Vanceburg down to West Point? So there's a great opportunity and a gap to fill there. So I think that, oh, John Seymour had a question, but it's also, I believe, for Seth. And John, I'll make sure he gets that question directly and responds immediately to you. So thank you very much. Back to you, David.
Well, it's just exciting to hear these possibilities and these projects. I wanted to share one screen here, and we'll stay online with people as long as you want to. But coming up on September 30th is a fascinating conference on the Ohio River. And there's about 27 universities. Right now it's virtual, and it looks at historical aspects. It looks on the ecological river. So if you're interested in sort of the research around the river, it's the theme of it's bridging visions to protect our health, economy, and environment in the Ohio River Basin. And so we're excited. That's September 30th. If anybody's interested, certainly reach out to us. I see Seth is back with us now. Seth, one question that was there was about your visits to trail towns and bringing people in. And so is there any suggestion, or Brewster, can you repeat that question? Because he just came back on.
Well, if I can find it here, but it was from Alan and Amy, essentially, like, you know, what
do you pay volunteers?
I think I saw it.
And all of
how
that
often do
stuff?
you do those trail
The trial run events?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just one time, and it's for the purpose of certification. And I think I actually saw the comments, so I'll try to hit on the key points. They vary in size greatly based on the town itself. And, you know, a smaller town in, say, very rural McGoffin County is not going to attract as many people as Elizabethtown, Kentucky. It's a one-time thing for the purpose of certification, for them to give out those surveys and get feedback and see, kind of get an up-to-date measuring stick for how they're doing. The people we invite, I just forward out an email to some different contacts I have with kind of Kentucky-based clubs. So canoe and kayak clubs, any cycling organizations I know of, and encourage them to share it. And then we generally share it on our department-owned social media pages also. The invites go out to any relevant activity. So if it's a town that doesn't have a river or a creek in it, I'm not going to send it necessarily to the canoe and kayak clubs. It'll just be the hiking organizations, horseback riders if they have horseback trails, things like that. So it's very targeted based on who the town is trying to attract as a trail town. And then from there, we just encourage people to spread it. And it varies wildly. I think some towns have had multiple, you know, a couple, 200 or 300 people show up. Ideally, they'll spend the night because, one, that makes a greater economic impact for the towns, but more importantly, so they can kind of check out the lodging facilities, check out how it goes, getting into town, getting checked in, how close you to trailheads, things like that. But that's not always the case. Some of these towns have very limited lodging still, and it's, you know, something for them to work on. But I hope that covered everything in there. It varies wildly, though.
That's great, Seth. There's one more question from John Seymour with the Oxbow Inc. Organization. What's the resource makeup of the local government officials you typically deal with? Tourism bureaus, mayoral offices, parks and recreation officers, restaurant owners, bed and breakfast owners, etc.
You definitely just hit all the high points there.
All.
Anybody, yeah. And it kind of takes a different shape in every trail town, you know, and it's so much, it's based so much on the individuals that do these different jobs. You know what I mean? And you all see that every day too. If you've got a really active director of your chamber of commerce and they volunteer on 4 other organizations, that's probably going to be the person that heads up the majority of the Trail Town work. You know, you just get these local people who get energized for things like this. But we encourage invitations to go out to any and all civic organizations. Like I said, health departments, chambers of commerce, local tourism has got to be a key component in this. That not every town has somebody doing all those jobs.
Right.
So it's different.
Hey, Seth, one quick question. While you were going on, the question was asked, how many trail towns are there along the Ohio? And I thought you said earlier, and the map showed that there are none currently. Is that correct?
None currently, no.
But you would like to have a bunch of them that are high quality, correct? Okay,
Yeah, it'd be
excellent.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the last question comes from our friend Kim Bauer. Can you repeat the date of the conference? September 30th is a Wednesday.
It's
Am I
September
confused? Is that correct?
30th
So,
and October 1st and 2nd. And I will send out a note with the registration information on it. But it's those 3 days, and it's a virtual conference. We'll have a celebration for the Ohio River on Wednesday night, and that's not virtual, but everything else will be online.
all right, so we'll be.
I do have one question,
Everybody
Brewster.
can participate. Pardon?
I do have one question, and it's for Dan. Dan and I have been talking previously a little bit about the view shed. And as we float down the Ohio River, you know, the Ohio River is a managed river. It's changed dramatically over the years. And I'm just interested in your thoughts, Dan, about having river towns protect their view shed and how the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail might be able to help with that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the view sheds, of course, are very important for visitor experience, and the critical thing with view sheds is learning about what activities are taking place. I mean, obviously, the proactive way of going about it is going across the other side of the river and engaging in conservation activities to maintain and enhance existing positive view sheds, if you will, appropriate vegetation. That's what we see so much when we're on the river is you don't really get to see much beyond the vegetation. Hopefully there is native forest, greenways. There's a lot of activities going on with greenways. The Park Service basically can get involved when there is a view shed issue where there is a federal nexus. If there's a challenge to a view shed, a development that may or may not be appropriate, if there's a federal nexus, then we have a voice. We get a lot of support from the two entities that I mentioned earlier, Jim Mallory's Lewis and Clark Trust and the Lewis and Clark Trail Heritage Foundation local chapters, where they can do things and comment on things where the Park Service has no federal nexus. So it's always a matter of the partners coming together to be either proactive or reactive. And when it's reactive, we certainly want to hear of it early. The earlier you're in on some activities, the greater the likelihood of being able to influence a positive outcome.
Well, I thank you. We'll stay around for as long as people on. I notice there's 42 attendees still. If there's any questions, certainly feel free to type them in the chat and we'll continue on.
David, I just want to point out we're especially honored that Mayor Drury, Mark Drury from Aurora, is on the call. We really appreciate elected officials, especially mayors, thinking this is understanding how important this topic is and digging deeply into the subject matter to make a difference in their community. So a shout out to the mayor, and we invite other mayors to join us in the future.
Derek, here's another question for you. I'm interested in long trails. And have you worked internationally on some of these longer trails? You know, like Lewis and Clark is from coast to coast almost. But and I've even heard that they're trying to make it from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh now too. But are there other long trails that have been really incredibly successful that Solimar has worked with?
We have. So I mean, there's a lot of pretty well-known trails around the world. The Santiago is probably the most famous one between Spain and France. But Solimar was instrumental in creating the Jordan Trail in Jordan. I believe it's a between 300 and 400 mile trail that went all through the country of Jordan. Great press has really been a big piece of the puzzle in tourism in that particular country. And then here on this part of the world, we worked with an organization in Guatemala connecting two of their biggest tourist attractions, Lake Atitlán and Antigua, which are, as the crow flies, about 50 miles from one another. And we helped to create a walking path between these two that offers 4-day treks with kind of luxury camping in between that sets up in the local communities. And then we're able to employ the local people from the communities to help set up the camps and cook for the guests and give them tours. So it's been a really, really great opportunity. So yes, in short, we certainly have. And we have our experience. We're really, really thrilled to be on this project at home. And with Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, it's interesting because there's, you know, it's really, really difficult to actually create an actual walking path. But with the rivers, the possibilities are endless.
And do you have any suggestions for us if we really wanted to think about that international? You know, I'm a great fan of you know, local food, local tourism, but I'm just fascinated with this international approach and elevating the Ohio River. You know, do you see it possibly happening at it's an international destination?
It could be. So we, believe it or not, and Dan may be able to speak to this further, but we have visitors from all over the world. We have Australians, Japanese people, German people that run all along, that tour all along the trail. The biggest asset I think that the Ohio River has, and frankly the Missouri River, the Columbia River, Snake River, is that level of authenticity. So authenticity and getting outside. A lot of people are starting to steer away from the New Yorks and Chicagos of the world and really wanting to get into the heart of the United States. And the Lewis and Clark Trail is the best way to do that. Even for me, you know, I'm originally from New York. I live in Colorado now. Touring around Kentucky and parts of Indiana along the Ohio River, it was a unique experience even for me. And you know, this is a country I've lived in my whole life. So that elements of authenticity and you know, accountability towards the authentic nature of the United States is something that we're really going to start to promote once we go live to the public with the Lewis and Clark geotourism program.
You know, Dan, you know, here's a follow-up for you. Seth mentioned, you know, the Smoky Mountain National Park is the most visited park in the United States. How do you keep track of numbers of people who visit the Lewis and Clark Historic Trail? Do we know how many people have been to VV to ask about Lewis and Clark?
It's really difficult for us to track visitorship on the Lewis and Clark Trail, especially since we don't have any ownership of any visitor centers. There's 130 visitor centers along the trail that are independently operated by various organizations, and there's really no way for us to quantify well the visitorship. We do know that people do come to us internationally. It is quite a bit of international travel. The story of Lewis and Clark is really resonates within the European countries, the exploration, and of course the westward expansion. So we don't have any way to quantify it. Would that we could. We've thought about lots of different methods of trying to do so, and we've just basically said we'll let the partners tell us who's visiting. And you know, a lot of the visitor centers do have check-in books and will report their international visitation as well as local visitation to us in a not organized fashion, but just to check in with us and let us know what's going on. And we do a little bit of trend tracking year to year in regionally. You know, for example, we've had multiple years now where the Missouri River Basin was really flooded. And so we have downward trends of visitation in those areas. We have areas of the trail with largely impacted by energy development that people are steering away from to some degree, and we get reports of ups and downs of all different kinds. So I can't definitively answer that, but generally speaking, we know something about trends at headquarters.
But you said 130 visitor centers for the Lewis and Clark Trail sponsored by local entities?
That's correct. That's correct. Each of those has at least a significant portion of their interpretation at those visitor centers is related to Lewis and Clark.
So I had a conversation with Augusta, Kentucky, and Lewis and, I guess Lewis stopped there on his way down, got out, bought vegetables. They knew what he bought actually there. The building is still there. So how does so if Augusta wants to have a visitor center for the Lewis and Clark Trail, they call you up?
Well, we do need to become aware of visitor centers along the Eastern Extension. That 130 number I quoted you actually is from St. Louis to the Pacific and does not include the Eastern Extension. We, at the headquarters, we are continually seeking more and more information about these kinds of facilities along the trail. We're currently just about to release a contract to determine the high potential historic sites on the Eastern Extension of the trail, which we're really excited to do. We have 78 designated high potential historic sites in the western portion of the trail, anticipating somewhere in the 20 to 30 in the Eastern Extension. These are sites that are determined based on the criteria within the Trails Act for what constitutes a high potential historic site. So we are in a mode of learning on the Eastern Extension, and visitor centers are, as well as National Historic Landmarks, are designated on several of our layers in our GIS system called the Trail Atlas, Lewis and Clark Trail Atlas. It currently isn't functional because we've got a GIS man that's been down for some time, but it's going to be back online pretty soon.
All right. Any other questions? Any other thoughts there, Brewster or Seth? I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today for this webinar. The Ohio River Recreation Trail is a volunteer organization, and we work through our partners and we work through our own volunteer initiatives. So we welcome any other participation, and with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for all attending.